Does that work? Okay, if you cannot tell, I am incredibly nervous and I'm about ready to pass out. If I ever speak again, I will go first. I am here. Actually, I think the reason I'm so nervous, the reason I'm so nervous is because we have such a diverse group of people here. And that's really frightening to me. We have some people who homeschool, some people who have kids in public school, some people who have kids in charter school. And as I've been trying to figure out why I am so nervous, I think it's because I feel like the one thing we have in common is that we all love our children. And maybe that can reunite us. I think it's very important that we start on a common value that we all agree on. Years ago when I was in college, my major was elementary education. And from the moment of my first elementary education class, I knew that I didn't belong in the system. And that sent me reeling because I love to teach. I love children. But I couldn't reconcile some of the things I saw in the public system with what I felt in my heart children needed. It's taken me years. In fact, it took me coming to the first agency-based education conference to realize that what I was confused about was agency. And I think that's where we can all unite today. I'm here to talk about the why, the what, and the who, and the how of a community school. So I think sometimes we just need to see the possibilities. And we need to see the principle that things are based on. Okay, first, why a community school? I love the quote from Alice in Wonderland about how I wonder where I want to go, and that depends on, I'm so nervous I can't think. The gist of that is that where we're going depends on where we want to get. And that's where principles come into play big time. So the community school I run is Star Academy, and our mission is to strengthen and support families and the community. And in that, I think there's 3 components of Star. First, and they go in this order. First, there's the group. Second, there's the families. And third, the individuals. And that's important when you're running a community school. If you have it individual first, your community school won't run as well. It needs to be first the group, and then the families, then the individuals. And we'll talk about why that is. When I began homeschooling, I love group interaction despite my fright today. But I do love group interactions. And so I began running lots of different groups for my children to attend, and we participated in lots of different ones. And the most effective ones were where they had some component of a show and tell. And that's what I strongly believe the purpose of a community school should be. Teenagers love show and tell. It just looks different at their age. They need to participate. That's the show and the tell. One thing I noticed with my elementary children was that the groups we did at our house were great until about the time they hit their teenage years. And then they really wanted a larger group. They wanted more group dynamics, and they were ready for other mentors. And I realized that they needed to connect with other teens, other peers, and also other adults who could help them contrast, compare, and challenge what they were learning. And yet I realized we want to be involved as families because we want to help them analyze and apply what they're learning about to real life. And so a community school, I believe, can incorporate the best of both worlds. It can incorporate the family dimension with the group dimension and support the individual's development. Hopefully, through doing a community school, we can offer an alternative to public education. Okay, a community school can be a small class, like I have spent many years running, or it can be bigger. You can meet anywhere. You can meet in a house. You can meet at a library. I have found the secret to getting libraries to let you use their meeting rooms without cost. Usually they're willing to do that as long as it's a meeting that is open to the public. Well, how many 10 to 12-year-olds are going to want to come learn about ancient Egypt between 11 and 12 p.m. on a Tuesday? So you're open to the public if any public kid wants to come. So the libraries are pretty good that way. Another big thing for community schools that I did mention last year, but I'll mention again because it was pivotal to us, is many times in order to find a building to use, you're going to have to pay rent. And to do that, most places are going to worry about damage to their building. So there's a company called homeschoolinsurancesolutions.com, and they provide very, very reasonable insurance for homeschool groups. And so what we've done is just go to a building, tell them we carry the private insurance, that the building is named as the building is the entity that would get the damages if there were damages. But most people are willing to work with you that way, and that's pivotal for us. What our community school looks like is we meet 2 days a week, but we offer, our classes are once a week for an hour. And we have found that that is a good model, and we'll talk about that. The who. Star Academy began in January of 2012. Now, I say it began, but really it began long ago when I first began running homeschool groups. So it's a process. In the process, I've been involved with 4 or 5 specific homeschool groups that got pretty large and that catered to larger group things, all of which failed for one reason or another. And so what I'm hoping to do today is to show some of the reasons why schools like that do fail and what we can do to make them succeed. But we began with 14 families and 17 teenagers, and we grew to 21 families, as you can see. And so our growth has been pretty substantial, which shows me that this is a need. To me, this is a bridge between the fear. I was thinking the fear for parents of actually taking kids out of public school would be similar to what I've been feeling just now. The absolute panic. I'm going to pass out. But really, it is a very scary decision to take that into your hands. And I applaud everyone who is able to do that. But a community school is a bridge. It helps us so that we can do that and yet have the benefit of a lot of things that public schools do provide. So who participates now, just so you can see the growth? This has been just in a year and a half. Now we have 34 families and 39 teenagers, and you can see 39 elementary students. We do meet 2 days a week. Why do we meet 2 days? I'm using this as a mic and it's not. The funny thing is I am co-teaching a class at STAR called Toastmasters. And for those of you that know, it's an international public speaking group. And so here we are teaching our kids public speaking skills. And I can actually do that, just not here. Okay, we chose to run 2 days a week. We began 1 day a week, and families were unsure as to whether 1 day a week was going to be too much for them because they valued the flexibility that homeschool offered them. But after 1 day a week, the families came to us and they said, this is perfect. We actually want to do it 2 days a week. So we've gone to the 2 day a week model. We will not go to the 3 day a week model as long as I'm in charge. And there's a number of reasons for that. With the 2 day a week model, we can offer classes once a week, and the children can go home and they can study and learn in depth and go do the reading and all those individual things at home, supported by families, and that's where that belongs. They can have time at home to learn the skill development like math. Doing multiplication drills as a group doesn't make any sense. As a group, focus on the benefit of the group. That will help you maximize your time, and it will help the children see the value in a group. And focus in the group on the things that the children can bring to the group to show about what they are learning about the topic at home. That's where you maximize the value of a community. Having 3 days at home is the perfect balance. The next one on the slide is a leadership mini class, and I just wanted to take a minute and talk about that. What we have done is we wanted everyone to learn leadership, but not everybody was actually interested in an hour-long class. So we do leadership games every day at 9:30. We meet for 15 minutes, and we play a leadership game. And they're the stupidest games you can imagine. We're playing Do You Love Your Neighbor? We're playing 7-Up. And this is for the teens. We divide into teens and elementary. But they just play a game. And then after the game, you play the game for about 11 minutes. And then you say, what does this game teach us about leadership? And the responses that the children come up with are just amazing and profound. They want to think about what that game has to do with leadership. And they come up with really interesting examples like, we have to cooperate even when we don't understand the rules of the game. Or we have to learn how to help those who come late be able to participate quickly so that they can be involved too. Those are leadership skills, and they're getting it from a game. And they love that, and it helps unify the whole school. And then we do have 4 class rotations and lunch and drama. And we try to offer classes for each age group, which we loosely divide as preschoolers, younger elementary, the elementaries that aren't really reading yet on their own, and then upper elementary, and then teens. And sometimes we might have a class that is suitable mostly for high school age teens, like a biology class, that type of thing. But we do offer classes for all the age group. Okay, how does Star Academy work? The first really important point is that in a group situation, I believe you should always focus on teaching skills. Sometimes a mistake I've seen in a lot of groups that get started, thinking, I'm always harping on those kids not to put in the filler words, which is But skills are important. And when you focus on teaching skills, you avoid having a mom or a child say, but I've already learned about the Civil War. Yes, maybe you have. And the more families you get, the more complex that becomes, because many children have already learned about certain topic areas. But if you're focused on skills, you can say, no, in this class about Abraham Lincoln's world, we are learning how to take notes. That's a specific skill. And so we're going to learn about the people in the world who were leaders and who were ruling and historical figures at the time of Abraham Lincoln. And we're going to take notes on them. And note-taking is a skill we're going to focus on. And so the child can take that class because they'll see the value in learning that particular skill. Skills can be direct, like in Abraham Lincoln's world, note-taking, that's a direct skill. Or in a class about building bridges, that's direct. They're building hands-on models of bridges. Or they can be abstract. This is where the teen classes come in. There's a big difference between elementary and teens, and the way I can really tell when a child's ready to graduate to that level is when they are ready to start thinking abstractly. There's a very definite shift that occurs in a child when he begins to think abstractly. The Uncle Eric books are wonderful for teaching abstract skills and thinking. They're just wonderful. And the Uncle Eric, one of the books in this series is called The 1,000 Years' War, which goes through the wars in the Middle East. Wonderful series. It's different from a curriculum, a history book about that time period, because it teaches, in Uncle Eric, you're discussing the philosophies behind what led to all these events. So it not only teaches abstract thinking, but it blends what they have learned from history, from a history book at home, with how they can apply that and see that in the real world today. At STAR, every mom teaches a class. So if you want your family to join, you have to agree to teach a class or co-teach a class. And this is important. When we ask the moms to teach the class, they get to choose what they want to teach, when they want, not time of day, but they get to teach what age group they want to teach and what kinds of skills they'll be teaching in that class. And then we ask them to make a class description about all that information, and then we compile all these on our Yahoo site, and the parents can go to that Yahoo site and look at the class to see if that fits what they want to learn. Part of skill development is where students share in the classes and they invest in themselves. They're investing themselves in the class. So the classes are very interactive. How does Star Academy work? We work because we focus on values. Groups do fail because they try to meet everyone's needs. You cannot meet everyone's needs. I have kids all the time who will come up to me and say, well, they'll see a new schedule for the semester and they'll say, I don't need any of these classes that are offered. Or they'll say, I want, the parent might say, kids don't usually, but the parent might, I want a more academic class or a less academic class. And so we remember that we can't meet everyone's needs. Our response is, all right, if you don't see a class you need, then what would you like your mom to prepare to teach? And that really does help a lot. Groups succeed when they honor agency and share common values. And you can see the common values that we have right on our information sheet that we give people when they're considering STAR. There's one that we didn't put on there, but I always talk to them about. The common value in our group is the group interaction. It's really important to me that parents understand we are here at STAR for the group interaction. We're here for the individual, and we want to support the individual, and we want to support the families, but we do that within the group structure. The other 3 days of the week, the parents can focus on the individual. And hopefully we support that at STAR, but we want to focus on the group. That really does help a lot. As I have watched a lot of groups that have not been able to sustain themselves long term, one of the conclusions I have come to is that the group becomes more of a board and a committee instead of the original founder's person's ideas. And if I'm going to invest this much of myself into a group, I want it to stay pretty close to what I've envisioned. So I would recommend having a co-chair. I would never do anything without a co-chair, just because there needs to be two people to take the heat. There needs to be two people to talk back and forth. Some of the people in our group will come to me. Some of the people in our group will go to Pam. But then the understanding is that we always communicate. So there is a balance there. That really helps. And get to know the families and their values and their needs. We have a mom who is extremely supportive. She assists every hour in a different class, but she does not want to teach. She has a panic attack like I do here. And so we don't have her teach because I understand that's where her comfort level is, but she's able to be very, very, very supportive by assisting that much. We also offer an unaccompanied fee option. We normally have families there. In fact, of our 39 families, we have 36 families that attend as whole families. For those families that want their teenagers to attend but don't want to bring their elementary children, we offer what we call an unaccompanied fee, where they pay an extra $10 a month, which helps offset some of the costs and the work the teachers go to. which is very, very reasonable. We don't have elementary children come unaccompanied without their parents. So the family, the mom, has to stay the entire day. We do insist upon that. And we do build this school to fit the needs of our own kids, because that's who we set up the school for. And we're avoiding a lot of practices that cause groups to fail. We do seek a lot of feedback from teachers and students. We're always talking to them. And this is where the idea of agency comes in. It's a learning curve for students as they learn how to support a teacher. And it's a learning curve for a teacher as she learns how to support the students. And so not all classes are going to appeal to all students. And that's a real problem. I've heard some people talk about problems they're having in their group today. Perhaps children in the group don't want to come and haven't prepared to come to class. So how do you have a great class discussion if the children aren't prepared? And that gets frustrating. But when you understand that it's a learning curve for students and teachers, we can more effectively deal with that. We talk about issues of respect. So we might say to a student, when you don't choose to come prepared, you're essentially saying to the teacher that you're maybe not seeing the value of the class and that you might not notice the hard work that she's put in to try to make this a class that you'll enjoy. So if you'd like to take the class, which is your agency to do so, we'd like to have you put in the work to come and to do the assignments. That just makes sense. It's an issue of respect and agency. We're honoring your agency, but your agency is to choose to come. And communicate with families. I'd advise setting up a Yahoo list or something similar so that you can talk to the families. I'm always putting on the list, for example, when we started doing the leadership games in the morning, families were thinking that was just game time, and so they were coming 15 minutes late. And I really wanted to help them understand, to see the point of why we were doing that. So I put that out on the list. I said the reason we are doing leadership games is so that everyone can become comfortable with each other and meet in the whole group. They're meeting individually in different classes because there's choices of classes, but this is the only time of day they get to meet in a whole group and learn leadership principles. And immediately we started having everyone come to the leadership games. It just took the communication. Okay, avoiding hurt feelings, huge. It's really important that we talk to the moms. We're usually talking to the moms without offending them. So I wasn't going to say this here. Actually, the most important thing I think for running a community-based school is to learn nonviolent communication. It's short for NVC. It's an actual skill. You can Google it on the internet. It's taught by Marshall Rosenberg. There's wonderful books. Periodically, I teach classes in that. In fact, if anyone wanted to email me, I'll teach an online class. It's that important. But it teaches us how to clearly communicate in a way that can express what we're feeling and what we're needing, and also invite others to express what they are feeling and what they are needing. We don't usually do that in our culture. So when we talk to the moms, it's very important to use NVC principles. We want to observe clearly with what is happening. For example, over Halloween, there was one boy I noticed leaving Star, and he was leaving in tears. Well, I went to him and I asked him why, and the reason was because there were 3 or 4 other boys, and they had these Halloween swords out, and they were poking him too hard. And so he was in tears. Well, that was obviously an issue, and so I emailed the moms, and I asked them about the issue. But I gave them a chance to talk to their kids and explain, to find out for themselves what the issue was. And then they were able to solve the problem. I didn't have to solve the problem. The moms addressed that. And one of the interesting things is that the mom of the boy who left crying realized that her son didn't know how to effectively say no. I've had enough. And so she said, that's a skill I can work with him on developing. And that's really why you want to talk to the moms. Okay. In an agency education format, my husband actually calls this multi-echelon training. He's in the National Guard, if any of you are military. But you have the individual, and that's the child. And the individual child has a part in STAR. They're invested. They usually have to come to class prepared to share or tell or talk about something relating to the subject. Then you have the teachers. And when you have a community school, the teachers get to know the other children and the other families, and they care about these other children. And so they're noticing that little Johnny isn't participating, and they're wondering why that is. And they're wondering if something is too hard, or if that child just needs to have their confidence built up a little bit. But they're working to see what they can do to help that child. And so the teachers are learning how to support individual children. And the families are being helped because they're learning how they can support the teachers and how they can offer classes that would provide something that everybody needs. And there's no compulsion in any of this. It's all done out of concern and caring. The individual students, they're participating because they care about the class and they care about the others in the class. When people are not invested in themselves in the school, they can become critical. And at STAR, one of the papers that we actually make families sign at the very beginning is that they will not criticize. Because when we are criticizing, we're always tearing down something. And that's not fair. The choice is to be there. It is not to criticize what is there. But as parents learn to teach the different children, they become, another benefit is they become able to address individual needs in their own families, and they can find support in the other families. The expectations as STAR. Every child can succeed in their own way, and that is the expectation. And we expect everyone to value and honor the effort it is to attend and to teach at STAR. We don't give grades. We're not accredited. We give feedback, but not judgment or criticism. And it's amazing. I wasn't actually sure this could work, but it does work. I don't even bother collecting homework in a class I'm teaching this semester called Abraham Lincoln's World. I do have questions for each chapter of the book, and they're important questions, I think, for them to learn the material. We go over the answers in class, but I don't bother collecting it because they just do the work. I know they do. And some classes, you might want to work with the parents or the child and say, what do you want me to give you feedback on? If we're writing papers in this class, do you want feedback on spelling? Do you want feedback on writing skills? Do you want feedback on content? What do you think the most important thing for me to give you feedback on is? And that allows for the agency approach. Honors work. This is a way to honor agency. Not every child is going to think every class is as important as other classes for them. And so we developed a system of honors work to showcase the children who do want to go above and beyond what is expected in the class. This term, we actually took all the children out to Angie's for cleaning the sink, which is a great big huge bowl of ice cream, when they were on track for honors work. But honors work meant that they had to do an extra project of some kind they could choose of their choice relating to the topic for the class. And they've done some very amazing things for the class to do honors work. This next semester, we're going to start a system where the kids who want to do honors work in a class are going to choose to either individually or in a group, they can work with a small group, they're going to develop some kind of a display, some kind of a poster or a display. And then the last day of our semester, that will be on display, and everyone will be able to walk around and see all these different displays. And they're also going to work in that group or individually to prepare a 10-minute segment teaching something that they learned in that class for elementary students. And so that's going to be an opportunity for them to refine what they've been able to do during the class. We do honors work for teens only, but if someone has an elementary who wants to do honors work, they're welcome to do that. Okay, discipline. We've kind of talked about discipline. We try to remember that the classroom is a place for class. And we show respect for the teacher by not talking to each other or passing notes. So our motto is, we're on topic in class. And you can be on your own topic outside of class. And being in class is a choice. This last one is just my email. I do have a blog where I have been putting information about how to start and run community schools. I forgot to include that here, and so if you want to email me, you can, and I will send you that information. I do have 11 minutes, so I could answer one or two questions if you want. Yes?
What's the geographical area that you serve? How many, are the families driving? Is it tiny?
We are in Cache Valley, which is Logan. We have families from all over the Cache Valley area participating. So I'm the farthest one. Right now we're actually meeting in Smithfield. I live in Wellsville, so I'm driving about almost a half hour to get there. So, you know, that's a substantial thing. Yes?
How did you get your families, were they all homeschool families? Did you canvass the neighborhood? Or
Okay.
how did you get your enrollment?
Okay, that's a good question. I have run groups for years, and so the 14 families we started with, they were families that I knew from different groups I had run. So I knew we were somewhat compatible, and that was pretty important. It's very hard to convince, we're not in the business of convincing someone to homeschool their children, so a 2-day-a-week model isn't going to appeal to someone who is looking for a 5-day-a-week alternative for public school. I think Star Academies, the principles behind Star Academy hold true. Someone could easily set up a 3-day-a-week school or even a 4 or 5 using the same principles of agency. So that makes a difference too. But I did gather the group from homeschooling families. Yes?
Because agency has consequences, when students choose to come to class, are they told there are certain rules by their choice of being in class, they have to meet the rules of the class, whether there are consequences for misbehavior?
Okay, so the question is, are there consequences for misbehavior? We are very, very careful to do this according to principles. The principles that we're choosing to base this on is that families are in charge. And so when there is a conflict between what the teacher expects and what the student is providing in class, the teachers, most of the time teachers are very comfortable going to the mother because we know each other. I want to know if my kid is not supporting a class, and I'm friends with that teacher. And so most of the time it's very easy to address it that way. We don't have very many specific rules because we don't need to. If you have the rule of respect and honoring the teacher, and if you have the rule of being on topic in class, it's really hard to do anything else. So that's our main rule. So there's sometimes when a teacher is not comfortable going to the mom, and so then they will come to either Pam or myself. And usually we look behind it and we find what the principal is involved. Like we were having an issue with cell phones just a few weeks ago, and the kids weren't bad, but it was art, and girls were texting boys, and we just don't need that there. And So Pam and I we did it over the email list, but we just explained the problem. We observed, that there are cell phones, and this is what we observed, and that there are two parts to that problem. The first part is that the children who are using the cell phones weren't remembering to be respectful. They weren't understanding the consequences of their action and how that would make the teacher feel. But the second part was the other students, some of them were actually bothered by that, and they hadn't understood how they could help solve the problem. So we pointed out that maybe our students could learn to say, remember the rule, be on topic in class. And so it goes both ways. So we avoid hurt feelings by addressing it that way. But we always keep it a mom issue, always. Any other? Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the financial situation and how that works out with?
Yes, that's a big thing. When you run a community school, you have to decide how big it is. I've run a community school in my house with 32 kids, and that was hard. You have to have a budget for new furniture. So we began looking for a building, which is why we had to find the homeschool insurance solutions. We charge currently, we rent a building out in Smithfield. It used to be the armory there. They don't have no one's using the building during the day. So they're pretty happy to rent it out to us for $700 a month. That's when you divide that by our number of families, that's where we get the $30 a month per family that we charge. And we do charge that per family. But when you consider that we're able to provide art, drama, all these classes within that structure, that's a steal. And ideally, what I'd love to see in all kinds of communities is several different community schools. So if there was somebody in Cache Valley who wanted to set up another 1-day or 2-day-a-week school, they could combine with me. We could charge our families the same $30, and we could afford to pay more money for renting a building. Does that make sense? So you want to combine with people who are doing the same thing you can, because there can be multiple ways of running a community school. And my time is almost up. Maybe one more question.
So that divides the rent, but what about like materials?
Oh, I'm sorry. Materials for classes. That is paid for by families. We try hard not to go overboard. Our art class is taught by my co-chair, who's wonderful. It's $20 a semester, if you can believe that. She buys everything in bulk, and she knows down to the last piece of paper what she's going to buy, and she's prorated it, and it's $20 a child per semester. But they're only paying for the supplies. We expect our teachers to buy the curriculum, just because that's the cost of teaching. So if I'm going to teach Abraham Lincoln's World and there's a teacher's guide, I'm going to have to buy that teacher's guide. But on the other hand, I don't have to buy the biology teacher's guide because I'm not going to teach biology. So it's a way of maximizing everybody's best things. And that's the value. I'm not very good at teaching science things or art. And at a community school, we can teach those. And if you don't believe you can teach a high school biology class in 1 hour a week, you need to come to STAR, because we have a mom who is doing that. And these kids they're spending 7, 8, 9 hours outside of class to do these assignments. And they're calling the mom, they're talking to the teacher, they're connecting on a mentor level, and they are doing that. She has not collected a bit of homework, but those kids are doing well. But it's the value of a community school and maximizing everybody's best things. Thank you, everybody. Now I'm not nervous. Thank you.